together to talk about all the things we used to do. The laughs, the passions, the little Sebastians, the pits we fell into. And we're putting it all in a podcast, then we'll send it up into the sky. We're calling it Parks and Recollection. Come on, little podcast, spread your wings and fly.
Welcome, everybody, to Parks and Recollection. Alan Yang is here. I am here. That means we're going to do this. It's going to happen. And we have a particularly good, funny episode. They're all funny. They're all good. I don't want to make it sound like, well, listen, I'll be very clear about the ones that I think are like super deep, but they're all good. That's why we're doing this show in the first place. Wouldn't you say?
It's a pleasure to watch. It's a pleasure to watch. We got the personnel here today, Rob. We're going to do the show. This is a fun one.
What do we got in the barrel today?
The episode is called The Possum. Episode 18 of Season 2, first aired March 11th, 2010. Written by the legend, Mike Scully, former Simpsons showrunner, one of the funniest human beings on earth. Directed by Tristram Shapiro, the elegantly named Tristram Shapiro.
Tristram
Shapiro is a British man. He's a British director. And to me, the writer and director of this episode, their names sort of embody an American name and a British name, right? The American dude's name is Mike Scully. The British dude's name, Tristram Shapiro. And by the way, he might as well be named Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yes,
It's the most British name I've ever heard. His last name is spelled, by the way, Shapeero, not IRO. So it is I'm basking in Tristram's name. Every time I see it, it makes me laugh a little bit. It's a great name.
It's a good name.
Shall we get into the synopsis, Rob?
Yeah, because I love... Well, here's the thing. Is it opossum, or possum? Because in the show, when you're dealing with the possum, because you're about to read the title, that's why I'm just checking here.
Yes.
And I don't want you to be wrong.
Yes.
What the fuck?
So,
with the possum, opossum? Can somebody just tell what's going on with that?
So I have your answer.
Okay.
I have your answer. Both possum and opossum correctly refer to the Virginia opossum frequently seen in North America. In common use, possum is the usual term. In technical or scientific contexts, opossum is preferred. Opossum can be pronounced with its first syllable either voiced or silent. That's very complicated.
Wow.
Wait, so you could actually say, that is, you know what, Merriam-Webster, that is so complicated.
Read it again. It's really good. What is it?
Opossum can be pronounced with its first syllable, that's the O, I guess, either voiced or silent. Now, that makes no sense.
How can you pronounce it silently?
Now, it feels like Merriam-Webster is playing a joke on us, because that doesn't make any sense. So, wait, I have a different take here, by the way. Possums... The opossum, I'm just laughing because this is totally different. The opossum is a mammal belonging to the family of marsupials located in North America. Possums, on the other hand, are marsupials of Australian origin.
What?
So this is a different take. The possums were given that name because of their close resemblance to the opossums of North America. I feel like now I feel like one of those people who's researching like a controversial topic on the internet and just getting bombarded by misinformation.
Yes.
Now I'm being gaslit.
Yes.
So I'm looking actually at photos. If you look up an opossum, that's what you think about. A possum, there's an Australian animal called the possum, and it looks totally different. But I do agree with Merriam-Webster in the sense that if you say possum, people think you're talking about opossums. I've now gotten so lost in the logic.
I
feel like we've both, in the process of this conversation, gotten dumber. Like, I feel like we now know less than we did before, and that is kind of what happens when you read too much internet. So I feel very confused, and so there we go. By the way, I was a biology major. I still don't know what the hell just happened, but yeah.
Well, tell me what happens in the episode.
Let's go to the synopsis. All right, buckle up, my synopsis sisters and brothers. Here we go. After the infamous possum Fairway Frank bites Mayor Gunderson's dog Rufus at a golf course. You got to love that intro to an episode. Mayoral representative Evelyn, played by Judith Moreland, asks Leslie to form a task force to capture the animal.
Task force?
Task force? A task force. She's very excited about that. Leslie, Tom, and Andy and two incompetent animal control workers, Harris and Brett,
Yes.
played by Harris Wittels and Colton Dunn, go to the golf course and quickly find the animal. The animal control workers are useless, and Tom immediately runs away, but Andy dives toward the animal and captures it. Evelyn is impressed with Leslie and promises her a special favor from the mayor's office. However, Leslie sees a second opossum and fears they have captured the wrong animal. She later finds out that the mayor doesn't care about catching Fairway Frank, but rather about securing a trophy animal for his bathroom. Meanwhile, back at the department office, reporter Shauna Malwae-Tweep, Alison Becker, interviews Andy for the newspaper article. After he brags about the capture, the reporter suggests his heroics might win him back the affections of Anne. April overhears this and leaves upset. Evelyn demands delivery of Fairway Frank, and Leslie refuses. She creates a ketchup-blood diversion, that old thing, so that April can escape with the caged animal. Leslie and April take the possum to Anne's home, where April has been paid $50 to house it. April lets the opossum out of its cage, and it causes havoc. While hiding from the animal, April reveals her feelings about Andy to Leslie for the first time. Andy, still oblivious, delivers coffee to April, as well as the day's newspaper containing a story which credits April for providing moral support to Andy. It is later revealed that Leslie has donated the opossum to the Pawnee Zoo. Meanwhile, we're not quite done. The B story. Ron plans a woodshop expansion in his home and seeks the approval of city planner Mark. Mark informs Ron that his inspection is needed. During the inspection, Mark finds numerous code violations and helps bring the woodshop up to city code. Ron thanks Mark at the end of the episode by building a wooden canoe and leaving it in his office. Wow, that is packed. That is packed. One of the longer synopses I've ever read.
And that's hopefully the listeners are still with us. No, that's not an indictment of your reading of it. It's just a very long synopsis on a half an hour show.
It's a long sis. I call them sisses now. I'm shortening synopsis so that we have time for the rest of the episode after that long sis.
Yeah, it was a long sis. The name Fairway Frank made me laugh. I don't know why. Were there a lot of pitches for I imagine those are the kind of things where you guys pitch 5 billion different names.
Yes. I mean, the alliteration is pleasant, and it just makes you think of it almost makes me think of a hot dog, because of Fairway Frank. Right? It's like, it's not a hot dog, but it sounds like one. It's like a ballpark Frank. But that's the kind of thing. It's also fits the Venn diagram of a little bit funny and a little bit cute. It's a little bit adorable. It's that's the Parks and Rec target, right? It's like a little bit funny, a little bit cute. Yeah, a little bit adorable, all those things.
It also sounds like something, if it has a name like that I'm not so sure. Yeah, I know it bit the neighbor, the mayor's dog, but like Fairway Frank is kind of a community legend at that golf course. It feels like a little bit.
It's almost like they're hunting Lil Sebastian.
Oh no! Don't even say it. Don't even say it.
I mean, that's brutal. But yeah, this Fairway Frank sounds like a mascot. It's like, have him around. But it's also like kind of in the tone of the show that there is this possum that has a name, and they just like, it's known. It's like that possum's a celebrity. Oh yeah, Fairway Frank. It's like they know it. That's very bizarre. I can't imagine that's the case in very many real towns. But yeah, it works for this show.
There's so many funny things in this episode. I mean, Aziz and his golf outfits is pretty dope.
Classic.
The fact that Aziz has clearly no idea how to play golf or putt. There's a scene where he's putting and he's like, his body's contorted into putting positions that no human has ever seen before.
He really truly doesn't know how to play. I don't think he's played golf in his life. So he's just in it for the outfits.
By the way, that's as good a reason as any. I mean,
there's also some great guest appearances in this one. Obviously, Harris and Brett from Animal Control. Also, their boss, played by Paul Raci, I believe his name is, nominated for an Oscar for Sound of Metal. So there's an Oscar nominee in this episode.
It's one of my favorite things of all time. Which is what, not to get too highfalutin or model or whatever, but like what's great, as you know, I have a complicated relationship with the business. If you've listened to my podcast or read my books or spent any time, like I love to knock the shit out of it because there's a lot that deserves it. But on the other side of it, you've got this kind of amazing story. And here's an actor who's been around forever. He's got 2 lines in a Parks and Rec episode. And within a few years, he's going to be nominated for an Academy Award. And that's the kind of stuff that's really is great about our business. Truly.
It gives you goosebumps because think about how long he's been acting. He's just been kicking around, going to auditions. it's a grind. It is a grind to be that kind of actor who was like, maybe you're not the leads of shows or movies. Maybe you're not even a series regular on a show. And you're just going to these auditions every day of your life. And then later on in your life, that, like you said, you're nominated for an Oscar and roles are probably starting to come your way. And it can happen at any time. It's really wild. It's like life is long. Life is long in that sense.
I always say, don't become an actor unless you can help yourself. Like, of the Screen Actors Guild, 97% of the members cannot support themselves as an actor. 97% of the members.
And those are just counting members, like you said. 97%. It's thousands of people. And I honestly, just to chime in, I don't think I really fully appreciated it till I started dating my girlfriend who's a working actor. Because look, from my side of it as a writer, yes, you experience a lot of rejection, right? Especially early on in your career. For an actor, it's a whole other level because they're rejecting you. You are driving around town. Honestly, yes. You are driving around town. It's your face, it's your voice, it's your body, it's everything. And they experience that rejection constantly until you're literally like a movie star and you're getting straight offers. To bring it back to Paul Raci, yeah, he has two lines in this episode, and it's like you just never know. But by the way, roles like this sustain you, and residuals sustain you too, right? Every time this episode airs, Paul Raci gets a little bit of money. He pay a little rent.
And if you haven't seen him in The Sound of Metal, it's by far my favorite performance of the year. Like, not even close. Not even
phenomenal.
Close.
He's his scenes with Riz, and I know Riz a little bit, Riz Ahmed, who's also nominated for an Oscar in that movie. The scenes with him and Riz are unbelievable. they're so good. Yep. So kudos to Paul. Congratulations, and glad to have you as part of our Parks and Rec family.
You're very
That's
proud.
Cool.
Very proud to claim him.
This was a somewhat difficult one to break in the room. It's kind of tangentially about the death penalty, right? That's like weirdly yes. Like it's a very strange, it's not a very serious show in general. Parks and Rec, it's not. We don't take on super weighty issues generally, but I think the origin of this one was kind of like she's not sure whether she should send this animal to its death, basically, which is kind of. It's a dark topic, but we kind of just made it a wacky episode instead. So it was one of the ideas early on in the show was, can we take these kind of more serious political issues and do our sort of silly version of it? And I think this was one of the episodes that resulted from those conversations.
And of course, the animal control. I mean, there's DJ Roomba, animal control. We're talking about my favorite things on the show. Those two, why are they, and they don't say a ton in this episode, and they don't do a ton, but why are they so funny together? What is that?
It's that thing of, it's hard to top. Just in terms of comedy, it's always hard to top. Just these two guys are clowns. They're just silly, and they're just, they're idiots. Harris saying "stop hanging yourself" is so funny, and it's like, this is. And by the way, I think we lucked out a little bit because I believe we at some point cast Harris earlier in the show as a pizza delivery boy, and he literally had a hat that said pizza on it, and then his scene got cut, so he didn't appear in that episode, and so he was able to be this character, which obviously became a recurring character, and so. That was kind of a blessing in disguise, and these characters would keep coming back. And again, Harris, one of the most important writers on the show, and sadly passed away a few years ago. But so every time I see him, in the show, it makes me smile.
And of course,
he's so funny.
And Colton Dunn, who went on
yes.
to I after. My time on this, I was developing a show, a comedy for NBC, and I immediately stole him, and he was in it with me, and then he went from that to Superstore.
Superstore, yeah. many seasons on Superstore, and Colton Dunn is he's made it. He's one of those people you keep grinding. He was over at UCB grinding, working in comedy, and then now he's series regular on shows. So Harrison Brett, Animal Control.
Andy with the opossum
Yes, the North American Virginia
Crawling?
opossum. Yeah, crawling. I wrote the same thing. It's crawling all over him.
It's insane.
It's you. He's not squeamish about it. I mean, look, we chose the right actor to do that because
Yes.
like there's some other actors in the show who would have been game to touch it, but it is crawling all over him.
And you know that it's on my neck. And that's just him saying, that's him doing what's happening.
Yes, I mean, I don't think I'd want that crawling on me. It's. You ever had an opossum like in your garage or anything?
Oh,
and had to
yeah.
like scare it away? Yeah. They're weird looking. They got those like white faces. It's like they have those like ghostly white faces.
Yeah, particularly when you see them at night because you just see that white face.
Yes,
Ugh.
your car headlights or something illuminate their faces, and it's like they're kind of cute in some ways, but also kind of repulsive. It's kind of both, right? So the duality of possums, right? But yeah, you got to get a broom, get them out of your garage.
Yeah, and just the cutting to him. Anytime you cut to a silly animal in parks, it has always been when she goes, oh, "There he is," and you it's like whip pan.
It makes me laugh. Yeah, we do that with raccoons earlier, right? It's like, I mean, it always makes me laugh to have animals in shows, and it's they're very unpredictable, right? It's like I mean, we had possums on, we obviously had dogs on at some point, and we had raccoons on, and because it's something funny to me about the animal wrangler who comes with the animal, and it's like sometimes it seems like they're not trained in any way. If you ever dealt with animal wranglers, you're just like, hey, can the animal do this thing? And they're like, yeah, he can do it. And then he can't do it at all. Like, you're like, are you just lying? Because he clearly can't do it.
That always made me laugh. And I did a movie called Behind the Candelabra, and Matt Damon's character wanted to get into Hollywood. And so he was an animal trainer at the beginning of it. And Matt Damon is the animal trainer in the beginning of Behind the Candelabra. It tells you everything you need to know about animal training.
It's so good, man. That was a Soderbergh film, right?
Yeah. I just want to add this, that Joanna brilliantly has given me a piece of information on the opossum that I definitely need to share, because it might be the grossest thing that I've heard in a long time. Newborn opossums are about the size of a grain of rice.
Oh,
that's got to be the grossest thing ever. Can you imagine them like mealing around, like 10 of them?
It's troubling. Oh my God. It also says they gestate more quickly than any other animal. The possum gives birth to 16 to 20 babies, only 12 to 13 days after mating.
Oh, the whole thing.
It feels like the opossum is part marsupial, part insect.
Yes.
The way it's being spoken about here. It's like 12 days after mating?
A grain of rice?
You're giving birth. Now, I kind of wish I hadn't learned that information, Joanna.
I told you.
That is very troubling. Normally not squeamish, but that is bad. That is bad.
It is what it is.
It's very funny that we used Nick's real wood shop in this one.
So that
Nick
is the
Offerman
wood shop.
has a wood shop. Yes, that is his wood shop. And we visited that workshop early on in the run of the show, and we decided to Mike decided to make him into woodworking, the character. So we ended up shooting here for this episode, and that's kind of cool.
I remember I in later episodes, Chris Traeger shows up at the wood shop, and I was blown away that this was Nick's real place. It's like now it's a total business. He has whatever Offerman Woodworking, and he has employees, and it's a little factory. It's a real deal thing.
Yeah, he is the real deal too. He can do, and I don't know if you ever got into this, but at a certain point, he was making little things for people in the cast, and they would request, like a table from him, and then he got so backed up, he's like, it's going to be. He's like, I'm sorry, it's going to take several years. He just had so many things in the pipeline. He's like, I'd love to make you a table, but it's going to take. So yeah, he made a couple tables or little stools and stuff for friends and cast members.
When Chris's time on the show was over, Nick made me this gorgeous wooden big box that housed all of the other wrap gifts that I was given. And it's got has a plaque on it with everybody's names, characters' names, and then I think right at the end was at the time we realized that Jerry's name was Gary and not Jerry. In fact, I think the box might be in the show. I think it is in the show. Well, when we get to it, we'll find out if that's the box that I ended up getting to keep. But Nick made it, and it's gorgeous.
There's something so satisfying about being able to make something with your hands. He's like, I made this, and it's like, if that's your hobby, it's just like, oh wow, you made this thing, and you can give a physical object to people. If your talent is something more ethereal, it's like I wrote this script for you. It's like, what? Yeah. This is nothing. This is somehow not as satisfying. It's like, it's an FDX file. It's a final draft file. You can open it up on your computer.
I remember one of my reoccurring nightmares is I remember woodshop as a kid in Malibu Park Junior High, Mr. Poole's woodshop. And I can't make anything with my hands. I mean, nothing. But I'm imaginative and I'm a creator. So I had in my mind what I wanted to make vividly, but no way to do it. And I remember how frustrating it was. And it was like depressing and aggravating. And I had to figure out a way to maneuver my way through that class, knowing full well I was never going to be able to deliver a final project. It wasn't even an issue. It's just not going to happen.
That's very frustrating. Are you handy around the house? Do you fix things around the house?
Hell no.
I love that answer, man. I love that answer. I find a small pride. I wouldn't say I'm
yard
handy
work.
necessarily.
No, yard work.
Yeah,
watering the lawn, mowing the lawn. Doing some gardening. That I do enjoy, and I feel like that pride of work doing it. But I'm not changing light bulbs even. But my house is really dark because all the light bulbs have not been changed.
It's just like, hope this one lasts a long time because I ain't changing it.
That's right.
No, I find certainly during pandemic times also, like, I was buying some stuff and I just kind of enjoyed putting them together. And there wasn't huge projects. It was like I bought a weight bench and I put together a weight bench and then I bought some like heaters for outside and I just like kind of liked assembling them.
Fucking bolts and like the A thing goes into the B. Oh my god!
I kind of like it. My girlfriend came home and I was like, she was like, you just like building this thing. I was like, kind of. I mean, I don't do it all the time, but it's kind of fun.
I have I'm a big believer in therapy. I've been in therapy forever, and I, along with my therapist, we've, I think, coined a phrase. I have what is called an IKEA complex.
Okay,
and that is it's a fear of not knowing how to do something. Like, because for me, IKEA, when I pass like that's a living hell for me. An IKEA, like, having to put together like my son's bookshelves at his dorm at college. Like, that's honestly, for me, that is just an abject impossibility. And something that gives me, just even talking about it gives me agita.
That's so, I think I have something of an IKEA complex too. I was talking to my therapist, Rob, and I think we have something in common, which is that, I know this sounds kind of obvious, but I really like things I'm good at. I think growing up, it was like I was good at I was a good student. I was pretty good at sports, and like I played music, and I was like, oh, I excelled at stuff. And that's, not to get too therapeutic with our speak, but like with our talk, but you got love from that, right? It's like you achieve and you get some love, and then later in life, you don't ever want to be afraid to try things that you're not necessarily good at. Like, I think that's something that maybe both of us can work on.
And you double down on the things you are good at, because nobody's good at everything.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Well, that was there. I feel like we just went through a little bit of therapy.
I feel so much better. That said, I'm still not going to IKEA and buying a bunch of shit I got to assemble. That's not happening.
Yeah, hey, get it. You can get a TaskRabbit to do it. You get a TaskRabbit or a Task Possum.
Yeah, that's all right. What is the character's name that works for the mayor? Who comes?
Evelyn.
Really believable, super believable.
Judith Moreland, but yeah, and it was like, obviously we didn't want to see the mayor for a long time, so she's just kind of playing his emissary. But yeah, I thought Judith did a great job. Yeah,
she was great. I totally believed it. And then who is it that screams at the end, "You're gonna fry"? When the possums in the, is it her? It's her.
Yeah, I think so.
It's her.
Oh man! Did you notice also that Anne is not really in this one until like the last 2 seconds? I don't think she's in the episode until the very end.
I know.
That was interesting too.
She's probably doing. I mean, listen, that everybody on the cast had side hustles going 24/7, and wouldn't be surprised me if she was in the cutting room on Jesse and Celeste. What was that amazing movie she did?
Yeah, remember her Celeste and Jesse Forever. That was her and Andy Samberg.
By the way,
our
that
old
movie
pal
is
Andy Samberg.
fucking brilliant. That movie is
it's
so
good, right?
good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it was great. And I think she wrote that movie, didn't she?
She wrote it
with Will. Yeah. She's a very talented writer. In addition to being a talented actress, and she can sing. What can't she do? What can't she do?
That's everybody on the show is like that, though. Really, truly.
I know. Well, that's what you're saying. This side hustle thing. Well, again, I don't know if we've talked about it on the show before, but if you look at the cast of this show, everybody went on to do pretty amazing things. It's like you look back, it's like, oh my God, all these people went on to star and stuff.
The guy with 2 lines won the Academy Award. What more do we need to say?
Yeah, I know. Right? Yeah.
Or
I
was
guess
nominated.
It's a charmed cast, and same with the writing staff. A lot of the writers went on to create shows and write movies and stuff. So you go back in time and you couldn't assemble this cast today. It would be too expensive.
Not only would it be too expensive, everybody is so busy that you just literally could not do it. I mean, it's amazing that we were able to put people back together for the little retrospective thing we did for COVID.
That reunion thing was really fun. Remember the thing at the thing we did at the Paley Center thing?
Oh yeah,
you were at that, right?
Sure.
That was really fun too. It was kind of a reunion, like 10 years or I don't know, 5-6 years after the show ended. But we did a little a panel thing at a Paley festival. It was at the Kodak Theater, I think, and it was crazy. It was like sold out, like thousands of people, and then we had a party afterwards. That was really fun.
Just for 1 second, I think we should talk about Mike Scully. We've referred to him a bunch in the past. But anybody who's watched The Simpsons sees his name on every single episode. And I've actually worked with Scully on other shows as well. He's such a comedic genius that he has a career where he will just come in, on one day a week on a show and just pitch jokes. And they are always so killer. I think he's got it. Don't you think he's probably the single best joke guy around?
I don't disagree with that. He is one of the funniest people who has ever lived. He's so fun and also one of my favorite people. Just like the nicest guy. Yep. And I loved having him in the room. He just has this warm energy. He's, and he was always in terms of career wise, such an idol because, comedy writing is tough. It's even tougher as you kind of get older, right? Because it's as you get older, you're like, it's in some ways a young person's profession. I look at my writing staff now, and it's kids in their 20s and 30s, right? That's generally the demographic. And Scully has been around, and he was an older guy in the room, but no one faster, no one funnier. He would come in the morning, pop open a Diet Red Bull and just start pitching jokes. And it's this guy, he I don't know. I can't say enough good things about him. I really felt like I made it in the world when I was helping to run the room and I would be typing at the computer and Mike Scully was pitching jokes to me. And I was like, oh man, I have so much respect for this guy. And this is I just couldn't say enough good things about him.
It's funny. You touched on something that why is it that comedy is, and it's true, it's a young man's game, and there's some what is that? What is that about? I mean, and then why is it that there are guys, unlike Mike Scully, and it's another thing that makes him so special, that guy has not lost 1 mile per hour off of his fastball, not one.
I think some people are unicorns, and I think it's like Tom Brady playing football at 44, or LeBron playing at 37. It's if you're really, really, really good to start with, then you can sort of get through. But I think for me, comedy is tricky because it very much has to do with the climate of the country in some ways, and sort of being in touch with what society is like. I know those sound like really, really grand proclamations.
No, it doesn't. This is making perfect sense because
and
we get more out of touch the older we get. We just do. We have to fight to remain.
You do.
In touch.
and stay clued in. And you think about, we've talked before about how comedy, it's tough for it to age. It's like a comedy from the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s. It's kind of more of its era. You can watch a drama from a long time ago, and those themes are often the same. Comedy is a little bit more specific to a time and a place and a society, and so I think when all of those things are factored in, it's tough to keep your fastball, like you were saying. But Scully is the rare exception, and he was so good in the room that we had jokes that we termed Scully jokes, where it was like the most efficient, the most sort of concise, the most like very quick turns, very sort of surprising ending of a sentence. Like he was able, that's just the way his brain works. And he's also an example of, one more thing about him, he didn't have family connections, or, he didn't know anyone in the business. He told us the story. He was a custodian at like a community college, I believe, in the Boston area. And he just moved out to LA, started doing stand-up and writing jokes for Yakov Smirnoff, and became a writer, and became like one of the most important writers of The Simpsons, which is arguably the greatest comedy or show of the last 50 years, right? And so you can that's another showbiz story. We're talking about Paul Raci. Think about Mike Scully. You move out to Hollywood, you have nothing, you're writing jokes on the back of a napkin, and then 20 years later you're running The Simpsons. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
There's nothing more to add after that. I think on that note, we go to the town hall.
Do you want to go to the town hall? I think you do.
All right, it's time for a Parks and Rec town hall, but this is very exciting. We're actually going to hear one. This isn't just going to be reading an email, I'm told, by our crack staff. So we're going to actually hear from a listener. So let's do it.
A very special town hall. And since it's an audio town hall, maybe we'll do it from the radio studio where Crazy Ira and the Douche occupy their radio show. So we're doing it from their studio. And let's hear the clip.
Hey Rob, Alan, and the Parks and Rec family. This is Rachel from California, and I am literally your biggest fan. I've always wanted to know who in the cast was the most prepared and who would mess up their lines the most. Thank you.
What a great question. Because I can tell you, I got your answers. Amy Poehler was raising two kids, producing the show, very much involved in the writing, sometimes directing, and sometimes she actually was writing, and she's basically in every scene and had been doing years and years of the show. So a lot of times Amy would literally be on set and kind of looking at it for the first time. So you'd often get 2 or 3 takes where it's clear Amy is working her way into being comfortable, right? Aziz, now everybody stares at their phones, right? But if you look at Parks and Rec phones, they're dated. There's like literally the ones with the pearl ball that rolls around. So this was it's hard to imagine everybody having an iPhone and staring at it every 5 seconds, which now everybody does. But in those days, Aziz was the trailblazer, and he was always on his phone. He'd be on his phone during takes when he wasn't talking.
It's in character.
And there were times when I would come, particularly when I first arrived and didn't really know Aziz's deal. I was like, does he know we're shooting? He knows we're doing a take, right?
He was so addicted to his phone that he knew it was a problem. So he was trying to quit using the phone so much. At one point, I believe he went to a hypnotist to try to get him to stop using his phone. And then at some point, this is really wild. He bought a cookie jar. It's a special kind of cookie jar that you can lock and put a timer on so that you don't eat cookies. But instead of cookies, he put his phone in it so that he couldn't use it for a certain length of time. Now he has essentially a burner phone. So he doesn't carry around a smartphone a lot of the time. He uses a brick phone that doesn't connect to the internet. And it has you can just make calls or something, and you can't browse the internet. And he doesn't have email anymore. So he's really like trying to quit all that stuff, which is really, I mean, he realizes it was a problem. He realized it was a problem for sure.
That's so funny. I had no idea, but yeah, it was. And then you had actors who were as prepared as they were ever going to be, and by choice didn't want to be that prepared, and that would be Pratt.
Yes, that sounds very accurate.
Right, and then I would say I fall under the prepared category along with Nick. Super duper prepared. Maybe it's because we're both Midwestern pleasures to have in class boys. He actually is from Indiana.
Dutiful teacher's pets. But no, I was definitely, yeah, Nick always, comes from theater, just really had his lines down to the word,
Yeah, and then I think the rest of the cast falls somewhere in the middle. But no one ever had quote unquote trouble with their lines, because to me what that means is somebody who literally can't or won't get their lines right, and they're out there. Those people are for sure out there. But not on this show.
Our cast was pretty good about that, and it's not an easy show necessarily. There's but it certainly felt easy when everyone was prepared, which they generally were. It was always like it was just a smooth shoot almost always, and that was a joy.
Yeah, I've been on shows where ensembles where you go. It's a little bit like Hot Potato sometimes, where particularly if the pace is like on a Parks and Rec, it's funny, it's comedy, it's got to be fast. Or West Wing, it's Aaron Sorkin, the faster the better, and you throw the potato, and then it's about to get to somebody, and they're going to drop it. You just know it. And then even when they don't drop it, the fact that you're thinking they are going to drop it fucks you up. It's just a nightmare when you have one person who can't toss the hot potato.
It is agony. I've been on sets where it's 10, 12 takes and they just can't get it right. And you're like, oh man, and I feel bad for all the other actors. I feel bad for the crew. And the other corollary to that, which didn't happen that much on our show, is people who can't stop breaking. So they're just laughing, and it's just like they're just busting takes left and right. And you're like, oh my God, we're 12 takes and you have got to stop laughing. You have got to stop laughing.
Really good question.
Thank you so much. I love the voicemail idea. Let's do more of them. Send in your voicemails.
Yeah, let's bring it. Thank you all for listening. This was a particularly good one. I had a great time, as always, and a lot of that is because of my partner, Alan Yang. Thank you, Alan. You're a genius, as always.
Thank you, Rollo. Pleasure to do the pod with you. And thank you, producer Schulte. Thank you, Joanna. And bye from Punny.
Parks and Recollection is produced by Greg Levine and me, Rob Schulte. Our coordinating producer is Lisa Berm. The podcast is executive produced by Alan Yang for Alan Yang Productions, Rob Lowe for Low Profile, Jeff Ross, Adam Sachs, and Joanna Solitaroff at Team Coco, and Colin Anderson at Stitcher. Gina Batista, Paula Davis, and Britt Kahn are our talent bookers. The theme song is by Mouse Rat, aka Mark Rivers, with additional tracks composed by John Danik. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Parks and Recollection.
This has been a Team Coco production in association with Stitcher.